Detective Marcus Doyle was a seasoned investigator with a sterling reputation in the city of Brookhaven. He was known for his dedication to justice and unwavering principles. At home, Marcus was a devoted husband to Elaine and a loving father to their 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Their suburban home was filled with laughter, family dinners, and shared dreams of a peaceful life. Elaine Doyle, a former schoolteacher, had sacrificed her career to support her husband's demanding job and care for their daughter. She was kind, thoughtful, and admired by the community. Elaine believed in second chances and often volunteered at a local women's shelter. Her loyalty to Marcus was unshakable, even during the difficult nights when his job pulled him away. Lily was a bright and imaginative child who adored both her parents. Her life was structured around bedtime stories from her mother and police hero tales from her father. To Lily, her family was her entire world, and the love between her parents was the storybook kind she'd read about in fairy tales. If you're captivated by true crime stories like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Before Elaine, Marcus had been in a passionate, tumultuous relationship with a woman named Serena Vale. Serena, a stunning redhead with a fiery personality, had once been a suspect in a domestic assault case Marcus was investigating. Despite the complications, their relationship ignited, burning brightly but briefly. Serena was charismatic and manipulative. She had a troubled history of unstable relationships and a tendency to become obsessively attached. When Marcus ended things to pursue a healthier relationship with Elaine, Serena felt abandoned, humiliated, and deeply wounded. She disappeared from his life, seemingly for good, or so he thought. Unbeknownst to Marcus, Serena had never truly let go. Over the years, she followed his life through social media and online news articles. Watching him build a perfect family fueled a growing resentment inside her. In her eyes, Marcus owed her the life he now lived with Elaine. Marcus was immersed in a complex homicide case involving a series of strangulations around the city. Working long nights, he had little time for his family, which began to weigh heavily on Elaine. She missed the intimacy and open conversations they once shared. Though she remained supportive, cracks were beginning to form in their seemingly perfect marriage. As the case intensified, Marcus discovered subtle evidence pointing to someone with inside knowledge of police procedures. He suspected the killer was a former officer or someone with direct ties to law enforcement. This theory would later connect to the darkness creeping into his personal life. Meanwhile, Serena re-emerged under a new name, Valerie Stone. She had legally changed her identity, relocated multiple times, and adopted a new persona. Valerie Stone was composed, well-spoken, and recently employed at a private security firm, giving her access to tactical training and surveillance technology. Serena, now Valerie, began sending anonymous tips to Marcus's department about the ongoing murder case. Her messages were cryptic but insightful, and Marcus was intrigued by the mysterious informant. He never imagined it was his former lover manipulating the case to get close to him once again. Valerie visited places Marcus frequented, always careful to stay hidden. She watched Elaine from a distance, studying her routines, her weaknesses. Valerie believed Elaine had stolen her life, and she fantasized about reclaiming what she saw as rightfully hers. Her obsession turned into a dangerous fixation. She began leaving small gifts at the Doyle home. A single red rose on the porch, a note saying, "Does he still tell you he loves you at night?" Elaine initially dismissed them as odd pranks. Marcus, however, grew suspicious and installed cameras around the house. Elaine finally confronted Marcus about the strange occurrences. Tensions flared as she accused him of hiding something. Marcus, bound by guilt over his past with Serena and fear of the truth, evaded the questions. This deepened the growing divide between them, shaking the foundation of their marriage. Meanwhile, Valerie's actions became more brazen. She broke into the Doyle home while they were away, leaving behind one of Elaine's scarves, carefully laid on their bed. Marcus found it and instantly knew who was behind it. Still, he hesitated to tell Elaine the truth, hoping he could handle it alone. Marcus revisited old case files and tried to track Serena's past movements. He discovered her name change and new identity, but by then, it was too late. Valerie was already steps ahead, watching their every move and preparing for the final act of her twisted plan. Elaine received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a wedding photo, torn in half, with Marcus's face slashed out. Accompanying it was a letter. "You took what was mine. I'm coming home." This sent Elaine into a panic. Marcus was forced to come clean about Serena and their past. Elaine felt betrayed, not just by the affair, but by the years of secrecy. Their arguments grew more heated and frequent, echoing through the once tranquil household. Valerie, watching from a distance, smiled with satisfaction. She had already infiltrated their lives emotionally. Now, all that remained was the physical confrontation. Her madness had escalated to a point of no return. Marcus's longtime partner, Detective Lila Green, noticed the change in him. Lila was a sharp, intuitive officer who had worked alongside Marcus for nearly a decade. She knew when something was wrong, and this time, it was personal. After some pressing, Marcus confided in Lila about Serena, now Valerie, and her reappearance. Lila urged him to put his family into protective custody, but Marcus refused, still believing he could resolve the situation without escalation. Lila began her own quiet investigation into Valerie Stone, uncovering disturbing patterns, fake identities, previous restraining orders, and psychological evaluations. What she found terrified her. Valerie wasn't just obsessed, she was unstable and violent. Valerie rented a house just blocks from the Doyles. Inside, she built a shrine to her lost life with Marcus. Photos, keepsakes, even a replica of their old bedroom. She rehearsed conversations in the mirror, practicing how she would win him back. In her mind, Elaine was the only obstacle. Valerie convinced herself that removing Elaine would allow Marcus to see the truth, that they belonged together. She meticulously planned every detail: the timing, the entry, the escape. Valerie also hacked into the Doyles' home surveillance system. She watched them eat dinner, tuck Lily into bed, argue in whispers. She became a ghost in their lives, present but unseen. Elaine decided to take Lily to her parents' home for the weekend, needing time to think and hoping distance might ease the tension. Marcus reluctantly agreed, promising to join them soon. It was the last time they would see each other whole. Alone in the house, Marcus began preparing for Valerie's next move. He stayed up late reviewing security footage, organizing files, and fortifying the house. But Valerie had already found a weakness, one he hadn't anticipated. That night, Valerie slipped into the neighborhood dressed as a delivery driver. She scoped out entry points and left one final message scratched into their front door: "You're already mine." On a rainy evening, with Elaine and Lily newly returned home, Valerie made her move. She disabled the security system and entered through the back door. She moved silently, armed with a handgun and a delusional vision of reunion. Elaine, hearing a noise downstairs, went to investigate. She never had the chance to scream. Valerie confronted her in the kitchen, accusing her of theft, not of possessions, but of life and love. When Elaine tried to reason with her, Valerie shot her twice in the chest. Marcus arrived minutes later to find Elaine lifeless on the kitchen floor and Valerie cradling her body, whispering, "Now you'll see me. Now we can be together." The nightmare had become reality. The kitchen floor was a battlefield of blood and broken promises. Marcus dropped to his knees beside Elaine's lifeless body, his hands trembling as he reached for her, only to be yanked back by the reality that she was already gone. Her eyes, once full of warmth and devotion, stared blankly past him. The woman he had vowed to protect above all else was lost. And he hadn't been there. Valerie sat a few feet away, her arms stained with Elaine's blood, her expression disturbingly serene. She rocked slightly, whispering a lullaby from years ago, a song Marcus had once hummed to her in bed. In her mind, this was the beginning, not the end. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each beat of Marcus's shattered heart. He didn't move, couldn't. The horror was paralyzing. All he could see was Elaine's face. All he could hear was Lily's voice calling for her mother upstairs. Officers burst through the door, weapons drawn. Valerie didn't resist. She smiled as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, her eyes locked on Marcus. "She was in the way," she said, calm and proud. "Now we can start over." Marcus lunged, but was held back by Lila Green, who had arrived moments after the patrol units. She gripped his shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Don't give her what she wants," she said through clenched teeth. "She doesn't get to break you, too." Paramedics tried in vain to revive Elaine. Marcus watched as they covered her with a white sheet, the final seal on the life he had destroyed by omission. Upstairs, Lily sobbed in confusion, held by a young officer trying to shield her from the trauma below. As Valerie was led away, she turned one last time to Marcus. "I did it for us," she whispered. But there was no us. Only a grieving husband, a motherless child, and the unbearable weight of regret. The house once filled with love had become a crime scene. And Marcus Doyle was no longer just a detective. He was a widower haunted by a past that finally caught up to him, and took everything. In the cold, sterile confines of the Brookhaven Police Department's interrogation room, Valerie Stone sat chained to the table, her expression calm, too calm. Her red hair was pulled back into a tight braid, and her hands, though cuffed, rested peacefully in front of her, as if she had merely come in for a conversation, not after gunning down a woman in her own kitchen. Detective Lila Green watched her from behind the two-way mirror, her jaw clenched. She had reviewed the footage from Marcus's home. She had seen the blood, the lifeless body of Elaine, and the hollow expression on Marcus's face. Lila wasn't just seeking answers. She wanted to look into the eyes of the woman who had torn her partner's life apart. Marcus was in no condition to be part of the questioning. After identifying Elaine's body and ensuring Lily was safe with his in-laws, he had locked himself in his office at the station, refusing to speak to anyone. His gun had been taken away, a precautionary measure Lila herself had insisted upon. Lila entered the room, a thick file in her hand. She dropped it on the table with a loud thud. Valerie didn't flinch. "Valerie Stone," Lila began, her voice clipped, or should I say Serena Vale. Valerie smiled faintly. "That name doesn't belong to me anymore." "No, but the blood on your hands does." There was a long silence before Valerie leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but chilling. "She never deserved him. He was always mine." Lila slammed her palm on the table. "You murdered a woman, a wife, a mother. Do you even feel anything about that? Valerie's eyes narrowed, but her voice remained even. I did what needed to be done. Elaine was in the way. She poisoned him. I was just restoring the natural order. Lila felt her stomach turn. This wasn't just obsession, it was delusion on a terrifying level. She needed to get inside Valerie's head, but more than that, she needed a confession that would stick in court. Tell me about the planning. The surveillance. The shrine in your house. We found it, by the way. You really thought Marcus would fall into your arms after what you did? Valerie looked away for the first time, her lips trembling slightly. He just needed to remember. We were happy, once. I thought. Once she was gone, he would see clearly. Lila leaned closer. So you admit it? You broke into their home. You killed Elaine Doyle. There was a long pause. Then, almost dreamily, Valerie whispered, I didn't just kill her. I freed him. Lila stood up abruptly, signaling to the officers behind the glass. They had the confession on tape. The case was airtight, and yet, no part of her felt victorious. Not when a child was motherless, and a man who had dedicated his life to justice was left shattered. As Valerie was led away, she turned to Lila and said one final thing. Tell Marcus I'm waiting. He knows where to find me. Lila didn't respond. She only watched as the woman disappeared through the steel door, away from freedom, and into the prison where her twisted love story would end. Marcus returned to work, but he was a ghost of the man he used to be. Colleagues noticed the vacant stare, the short temper, the silence that replaced his once commanding presence. He buried himself in paperwork, avoided field assignments, and refused to discuss anything unrelated to work. The precinct held their breath around him. At home, the silence was louder. Lily's once vibrant laughter was gone. Her drawings now featured dark scribbles, broken houses, and shadowy figures. Each night, she slept on the floor of her mother's closet, wrapped in one of Elaine's cardigans, whispering stories to herself as if Elaine were still there to listen. Marcus tried to connect with her. He cooked Elaine's favorite meals, read Lily's bedtime books, even brought home a puppy to cheer her up. But nothing filled the void. Lily recoiled at his touch, not out of hatred, but fear. Somewhere in her heart, she blamed him for not saving her mother. In private moments, Marcus replayed the night over and over in his mind. If only he had told Elaine sooner. If only he had taken Lila's advice. If only he had been home. The guilt was a parasite, eating away at what remained of his spirit. Lila checked on him frequently, offering food, help with Lily, anything to bring him back. But Marcus was unreachable. Even as the department prepared for Valerie's trial, Marcus showed no interest in the case files. He couldn't face the details, not yet. Meanwhile, Valerie sat in a psychiatric holding facility, awaiting psychological evaluation. She spent her days writing letters to Marcus. Dozens of them. Each one professed her love, her justification, her belief that Elaine's death had made things right again. She drew pictures of their imagined family and begged for Marcus to visit. He never did, but the letters kept coming. And one day, Lily found one addressed to their home. No postage, just her name in red ink. The nightmare wasn't over yet. The courthouse steps were lined with news vans, reporters jockeying for camera angles, and curious onlookers hoping to glimpse the woman at the center of Brookhaven's most sensational case in decades. Valerie Stone, once Serena Vale, stepped into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, her red hair tied neatly back, her expression unreadable. Despite the weight of her crimes, she held her head high, as if she believed the trial was just another stage for her story. Detective Marcus Doyle sat behind the prosecution, his face gaunt and shadowed. Weeks of sleepless nights and unrelenting grief had hollowed him out. Lily sat beside him, clutching a stuffed bear, her eyes vacant. Lila Green accompanied them, fiercely protective, a silent sentinel who now carried the burden of keeping what remained of the Doyle family whole. The prosecution opened with a clear narrative. Valerie Stone had stalked, terrorized, and ultimately murdered Elaine Doyle out of obsession and revenge. They presented the letters, the photographs, the shrine found in her home, all damning evidence of her descent into delusion. Elaine was portrayed as the tragic casualty of a mentally unstable woman's vendetta. They didn't deny the killing. Instead, they argued that Valerie suffered from untreated borderline personality disorder and PTSD from a history of domestic abuse prior to meeting Marcus. Her lawyer painted her as a deeply broken woman who had been manipulated, abandoned, and discarded like trash. The defense claimed her actions, though horrifying, stemmed from a place of psychological trauma rather than evil intent. Valerie herself took the stand. Her testimony was chilling. With calm precision, she recounted her version of events, how Marcus had used her, how Elaine mocked her by living the life she was promised, and how she had no choice but to act. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Valerie described the night of the murder with disturbing tranquility, her words void of remorse but rich with justification. "I wasn't trying to destroy him," she said softly, glancing toward Marcus. "I was trying to save him. He just didn't know he was drowning." Marcus nearly rose from his seat. Lila held him back. The courtroom was divided. Some saw a dangerous manipulator feigning madness. Others saw a deeply disturbed woman failed by the system. But for Marcus and Lily, there was no ambiguity, only loss. As the trial unfolded, new pieces of evidence emerged. A journal, written by Valerie in the months leading to the murder, was found under a loose floorboard in her rental house. Its pages were filled with alternating pleas for love and threats of violence. One entry read, "I'll do it with roses. With blood. With love." Marcus knew then, she hadn't snapped. She had planned every step with terrifying clarity. The prosecution presented its first witnesses. The forensic technician who confirmed that Valerie's fingerprints were found on the murder weapon and around the kitchen. Then came the pathologist, who described in chilling detail the trajectory of the bullets and how Elaine had died within minutes from internal bleeding. Each word Marcus heard felt like a knife carving deeper into his soul. Then came the moment everyone anticipated. Detective Marcus Doyle was called to the stand. He walked slowly, deliberately, the weight of his badge feeling heavier than ever before. Sworn in, he sat and stared across the room at Valerie, who met his gaze with a small, unnerving smile. It sent a chill down his spine. The prosecutor started gently, asking about his history with Serena Vale, now Valerie Stone. Marcus answered with visible discomfort but unflinching honesty. He detailed their past relationship, how it ended, and how she had vanished from his life until recently. "She reinserted herself into my life through manipulation," Marcus testified, his voice steady. "She stalked my wife, broke into our home, and ultimately, she murdered Elaine." The defense attorney stood, straightening his tie before approaching. His tone was colder, calculated. "Detective Doyle, you admit to a romantic relationship with my client in the past, correct?" "Yes. And yet you failed to disclose this relationship when the threats against your wife began?" "I wanted to protect my family." "Or protect yourself? Isn't it true that you feared the consequences of your past indiscretions becoming public, especially given your high-profile position?" Marcus clenched his jaw. I feared for my family's safety. The defense then pivoted to Valerie's supposed mental decline, presenting fabricated journal entries and a psychologist's analysis that painted her as a broken woman, unable to distinguish fantasy from reality. The goal was clear: to reduce the charge from first-degree murder to manslaughter by reason of diminished capacity. When Valerie took the stand, the courtroom held its breath. She wore a soft blue sweater and minimal makeup, playing the part of a vulnerable, misunderstood woman. Her voice trembled, her hands shook as she spoke of losing herself and feeling invisible for years. "I never meant to hurt Elaine," she claimed. "I just wanted Marcus to understand what he did to me, how he ruined me and then threw me away." The gallery murmured. Marcus stared at her, numb. He no longer saw the woman he once knew, only the monster that had destroyed his life. Then came the cross-examination by the prosecution, sharp and unyielding. "You purchased a firearm weeks before the attack, didn't you?" "Yes. I thought I needed to protect myself." "And the replica bedroom in your house? The hacked surveillance system? The messages and threats?" Valerie's mask cracked. Her voice turned icy. "He was mine before she came along. She poisoned him, turned him into someone else." That was the moment the jury saw it too. Not a victim, but a calculated predator. As court adjourned for the day, Marcus stepped outside and was swarmed by reporters. He ignored them all, his focus solely on Lily, who waited in the car, clutching a framed photo of her mother. The trial wasn't just about proving Valerie's guilt, it was about reclaiming the truth. But justice, Marcus knew, would never bring Elaine back. The courtroom was packed on day 2. News cameras rolled outside, while inside, tension crackled in the air like static. Marcus Doyle sat stiffly behind the prosecutor's bench, his police badge nowhere in sight, replaced by a grieving father's heavy silence. At his side sat his attorney, less for legal defense and more to support a man too close to the flames to stand alone. Then it was time for Marcus to take the stand. He rose slowly, his uniform replaced by a plain black suit. The room hushed as he approached the witness box. The prosecutor guided him gently through his background, his relationship with Elaine, the night of the murder, and his past with Serena Vale. "I ended it years ago," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "But I should have told Elaine the truth. Maybe then, maybe she'd still be alive." Valerie never broke eye contact. The defense tried to discredit Marcus, painting him as a cheating husband who provoked Valerie's spiral. They suggested a rekindled affair, questioning whether Marcus's MOT, but Marcus remained stoic. "I never invited her back into my life," he said, locking eyes with Valerie. "She forced her way in. She made herself a ghost in my home. And then she murdered the woman I loved." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous: guilty of first-degree murder. As the judge read the sentence, life in prison without parole, Valerie smiled faintly and whispered, "He'll visit me." Marcus stood silently, fists clenched, heartbroken anew. He knew this chapter was over, but the story of pain she left behind would continue to unravel.